Welcome to Scotland. So it's pouring with rain outside and you're not allowed outside of your flat because it's quarantine and you're thirsty. So you make mead. Making mead is a really simple process and you only need two ingredients to make basic mead: honey and water. I want to make slightly more advanced mead. So today I am going to be making mead from a 14th century English recipe. Let's go. So the first thing you need to make mead is obviously honey, and I don't actually have very many good medieval photos of honey, so here are just some fun pictures of medieval bees of various shapes and sizes, and medieval beekeepers trying their best to keep control of their hives. I'm using about a gallon of water that I'm putting in a stainless steel pot because I don't have an earthenware pot big enough. The original recipe does call for stone or earthenware, but I just don't have anything that big. Everything's been sanitized before using it, so now we can move on to the exciting stuff. I'm using basic honey. You can use pretty much any honey you want. Raw honey is recommended because it contains some natural yeast and is better tasting generally. But I'm also using some of this, and this is barley malt extract. It's used for all sorts of cooking, from brewing to Christmas cakes to mince pies to fruit loaf. And the reason I'm using it is because it's going to give me a little bit of extra sugar, and it's going to give a nice malty flavour, hopefully, to the mead once it's finished. I'm also using recycled yeast for the most part, which, you're going to see in just a second, I used to make some beer. These are the lees, the leftover yeast and gunk from that previous beer, and that's actually what the recipe calls for. It calls for the yeast, the barm, or the lees of a previously brewed beer, or ale. So, sanitizing is basically where you spend most of your time when you're brewing. This is me sanitizing basically everything using a no-rinse sanitizer from my local brew store. It's really good. It gets rid of stains. It cleans glassware. It's actually a very good general cleaner. I use it to clean everything from the brewing kit itself to the thermometer and the hydrometer. The thermometer obviously is used to make sure that the yeast isn't going to die when I pour it into the brew. And the hydrometer inside this sample tube is a rather nifty little piece of kit that they didn't have in the 14th century. But I'm using it because it basically measures what percentage of the stuff that you stick it into is sugar or something that isn't water. And from that, you work out the alcohol. So, we're now ready to begin. Stick 3 pounds of honey into some freshly boiled water. Don't put it into boiling water. Put it into water that's already boiled and you've taken it off the heat so it doesn't start burning and sticking to the bottom of the pan, and then you'll have to scrub it, and then your significant other will get cross at you, and that's not good. Stick it all in, throw all of the honey in, and once you've thrown the honey in, give it a damn good mix. Bring it to the boil later on again. Now, whilst it's mixing in and soaking up, I'm making my yeast starter. So I've got some honey water here that I've prepared in a small glass that used to contain chocolate spread, and now I'm pouring in the goopy gunky lees, and they look revolting. Give it a mix, cover it with cling film or saran wrap, and just let it stand somewhere warm for an hour, and you should start seeing fizzing and bubbling and frothing as the yeast reactivates. Stir everything up in the pot every now and then just to make sure that the honey, I nearly said yogurt, don't use yogurt, but the honey and the water is nicely mixed together. Imagine yogurt mead. So eventually it should boil, and when it boils you'll see this scum forming on the top. That scum you're going to want to skim off using a spoon or a ladle and just chuck it away. You do not need that. Once you've pitched the yeast into your mead, once it's cooled down to room temperature, put it in an airlock and put it in a dry, warm area out of the sun, and you'll start to see bubbling. Bubbling basically means that the fermentation process has worked. So congratulations, you've successfully brewed mead. Now all you have to do is wash all of your equipment up, because honey gets everywhere. Believe you me. And there you go. That's mead. You've made it. It should take you probably about an hour or two, depending on how quickly you can cool down that boiling hot honey water mix down to room temperature, which you have to do because if it's any hotter than about 25 degrees Celsius-ish, the yeast might struggle, and if it's too hot, say 45 degrees, then the yeast might start to die. And it's not a good thing to have dead yeast lying in your mead, because that means that it's just going to be honey water with gunk in the bottom instead of a refreshing, sweet, alcoholic drink prized for many, many centuries. Like I said, this recipe is basically from the 14th century. I'll post a link to the page that I got the recipe from down below, so thank you very much to the SCA people who came up with the recipe and translated it into modern English. There are plenty of other mead recipes. You can make mead with spices, with fruit, you can make it with various additions and adjuncts, and you can actually use beer combined with yeast to make a Welsh drink called braggot or braggout. So go out there and experiment. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you have anything that you want to say about this, please throw it in the comments. If you've made mead, let me know how it went in the comment section below. If you found this helpful, please do like and feel free to subscribe to the channel. It really does help the channel grow and it gives me something to look at whilst I'm in the bath. So thank you very much indeed for watching, and bye for now.